Great. All right. Good evening, everyone. We're going to say the pledge and then we are going to go into regular meeting. Let's start with the pledge and we'll take it from there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Trustee Fritchie,
Present.
Trustee White,
Present.
Trustee Casada,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Lopez,
Present.
and Mayor Levin.
Present.
Mayor and trustee announcements.
Hey. Sorry, getting comfortable. All righty, do we have anything to my right? I think not, but I see nothing here. Okay, so let me just do a little recap. Busy past weekend, super busy. We had the 26th, yes, 26th annual Portuguese Day event, which was, as always, lovely. It was brings a big community that has been here for over 135 years. It was just, and I saw a lot of people there that we know. There are a lot of people that come back for this every year. We have wonderful Portuguese restaurants. So it was just a lot of fun. And we did a flag raising for that. The next day, we continued with Juneteenth celebration. Juneteenth flag raising was the beginning of the month, but we continued. Joyce Chirac Cole and the council, the Juneteenth Council. Joyce will be joining us shortly as well. Our historian. The council did a wonderful job. There was a wonderful event at the waterfront, which many of us went to. The weather was fabulous and the events were terrific. And then on Monday, on Juneteenth, some of us went to the telling at Star of Bethlehem, which was also done with the Juneteenth Council, which was really super interesting. It brought together a woman who was very interested in looking at the way the Jewish Seder is done in Passover and the story of emancipation from slavery and making that a Juneteenth event and sort of rewriting the way that story is told, more appropriate for Black slaves and the history there. It was the first time I had heard about this. It's the first time I had seen it. My synagogue had done something similar with her, but it was really wonderful. I'm mentioning it because I'm hoping it'll be done again next year. And I think what she's hoping is that more and more members of the community will use that story and its telling about slavery, emancipation, and through different lenses. So that was sort of cool. And I always feel like only in Ossining, like very happy to be living in a community where you bring different aspects of the community. I always think this whole mosaic is like a perfect diamond with many facets. The more facets a diamond has, the more beautiful it is and the more light it shines. So it was just one of those wonderful weekends in the village. There'll be more events coming up. Read the mayor's message, read the web blast that Jamie Hoffman sends out. A lot of different stuff on Facebook. Today is Happy Solstice Day, the longest day of the year, and the weather's absolutely magnificent out there. And of course, it's also Music Day, Make Music Day. There are lots of events that I think they're still going on. I just don't have the list all in front of me, but I hope you don't go to them because I hope you're listening to this meeting. But there are, did you? Oh, I saw one at Tasty Table. What did you see?
My son was playing drums at Sing Sing Hill Brewery with his girlfriend Sophia,
Oh, okay. I'm sure he'll appreciate it. Oh, he's not here tonight. I'm sure he'll
who's
appreciate
a
that
singer.
Wow.
Yes, I know how much my kids appreciate when I mention their friends. But hey.
I don't know. I didn't know what to say, so no secret.
No, there's a lot of great stuff. In fact, some of you may have seen me learning from the MKB group, My Brother's Keeper. On Saturday, I was doing the drum playing. I was getting good at it. But some of you may have missed that. Luckily, nobody was videotaping that. So anyway, those are some of the things coming up. I'm sure there are more things, but we have a lot of venues for that information. I also want to mention that we had a really interesting morning 11:30-ish. We, some of us were at, folks here as well, were at a press conference about the solar panels that our folks have put up on in the operations center off of 9A. It's a wonderful project. It affords solar energy for the building, the operations building. I think every municipal building throughout the country should be solarized if possible. So we like to be in the lead on that. But it's also great because 100% of the people that have signed up to benefit from a reduction in their Con Ed bill are Ossining residents. Some of them, I don't think it's not 100%, but some of them are qualified because they are low income folks, and they applied through Con Ed, and they were approved through Sustainable Westchester were there. Our senator was there, a representative for our assemblywoman was there. So it was a really happy moment. I consider this phase one. Phase two is going to be solarizing the parking lot at Metro, at the commuter parking. That's our next big project, probably a 2024 project. I'm super psyched about that. So I really am really excited to be at the forefront of, I think Senator Harkam said he'd like to solarize everything, but certainly as role models in the community, I think municipalities should be at the forefront, as should schools and other buildings where you can't solarize everything, but where you can, you should. And so I'm very pleased about that event this morning, and really enjoyed meeting our partners that we've seen on Zoom so long, and the many compliments that Jamie Hoffman received, that Andy, that Paul received, and of course you, Maddie, and they did eventually say your name correctly, that you received, and all the other folks that have been on so many meetings to get this done correctly, well. And if you go to the Operations Center, you will not see a lot. They did such a great job. The panels are exactly the way you should be. They're unobtrusive. You don't see them. They dug through on the ground. The grass looks like it was untouched. I don't know how they did that, but they did a fabulous job. So kudos to everybody involved. I thank everybody for that. And I think we can get started.
Special presentation? Oh, sorry.
When is?
Administrative reports. Village Manager Karen Torrey.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be brief today because we do have a special guest and I would like to bring her on soon. In addition to the wonderful ribbon cutting that we had, we've had some other exciting things happen this week. Yesterday, Chief Sylvester and I attended the County Executives weekly PR press conference roundup, and the highlight was a discussion about the Mental Health Mobile Crisis Unit. I will leave the chief to give the details on that. He spoke passionately, and it was a really great way to celebrate what is truly one of the most innovative community policing initiatives that I've seen in a long time, and certainly something we're blessed to have here stationed. It's home base here for this region here in Ossining. So it was good to be there, and it was good to have the chief there. We also, I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow night is a transformational Thursday, and tomorrow night's topic will be Spring on Main. And that is really talking about the mixed use development that we're planning with preferred developer Wilder Balter and St. Catherine Group. So tune in 6 p.m. tomorrow night via Zoom, and you can hear more about the plans for what's happening on Spring on Main, the corner of Spring and Main, or what's usually known as the post office parking lots. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our village historian, Joyce Cole. She's going to be talking about an honorary street naming report. She's going to be presenting this report for former Assemblywoman Sandy Galiff. So Joyce, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This was really exciting because in all of the honorary street namings I've done, each person has passed away. And it was very nice to be able to speak to the person and give them their flowers while they're still with us. And I'm always impacted by the applications, but Sandy was really, she felt like an auntie when I was done talking to her. So I'll get right into her report. So I researched Sandy Galiff, as we know her, Sandra Sandy Galiff, by consulting the following sources: Sandy herself, her children, Greg and Gwen, Commissioner Richard Wishney of Emergency Services of Westchester County. I spoke to Rika Levin, Trustee Dana White. I actually did include a report. Dana and I were both doing interviews with Sandy around the same time, so I included Trustee White's report as well. Her bio, I referenced several newspaper articles. I mean, it's Sandy Galiff. You can find anything on Sandy Galiff. Her residency in Ossining, she has been here in Ossining for 54 years and counting. When in 1968, she was a resident of Eastchester, and her husband Steve were looking to move, and a friend had purchased a house in Ossining. She came to visit. She was struck by the Hudson River and, at that time, our new library that is no longer there. And they decided to look here as well. So during Christmas time, my favorite time of year, of 1969, they purchased the house that she still lives in today.
Wow.
Sandy worked as a teacher. I don't know if a lot of people know that she was a teacher in a Little Red schoolhouse in Virginia, and then in Scarsdale until she became pregnant with her first child, Greg. And she had to stop because women at that time teaching pregnant was not favorable. They didn't want to have to explain to the kids how that happened. So they preferred that they not work and go home, so they didn't have to explain the condition.
Oh, man.
She continued to work with students as a tutor because she really enjoyed being with the kids and working with them, until it just became too much to raise two small children and tutor kids. So then she stopped working. Both of her children, Greg and Gwen, were educated in the Ossining School District. And as we all know, Sandy's local office was at 2 Church Street. In terms of her contributions, I don't know about you all, but this is really weird having to explain anything about Sandy Galiff, because her commitment started in school, started in Westchester County, where she had lived since 1944 as a resident of Mamaroneck, White Plains, Eastchester, and Ossining. Former Assemblywoman Galiff was born Sandra Risk in La Crosse, Wisconsin in May of 1940. Sorry, Sandy, for telling your year of birth. After moving to Westchester, she attended schools in Mamaroneck and White Plains. She graduated from White Plains High School with honors and was class secretary. She attended Purdue University and was again she was elected class secretary and president of her sorority, just to give you some background on her. And after graduating Purdue, she received a master's degree in education at the University of Virginia while teaching in Charlottesville. She next worked in Scarsdale school system as a teacher and subsequently left to raise her children, as I explained before. Her volunteer activities in Ossining specifically she was a trustee of the Ossining Public Library. She was on the Youth and Employment Services Committee, where she helped kids get jobs if you were doing a lawn mowing, if you were working at a local business. And I found out she did that with my great aunt. So that was interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yes. She was also the president of the League of Women Voters of Briarcliff Ossining, president and 16-year board member of the United Way of Northern Westchester, board of directors Visiting Nurse Service of Westchester, president of National Council of Jewish Women, Westchester, evening section, board of directors, Phelps Memorial Hospital, Robbins Nest Daycare Center, board of directors, Westchester Municipal Planning Federation, board member, Phelps Memorial Hospital, Bethel Nursing Home, and the list goes on. And the reason why I'm adding things that are not Ossining, because it impacts Ossining residents, all of these different organizations. So her affiliations are endless. You can see it if you look further in the report when it is posted online. One of the favorite things I did love about talking to Sandy, this quote, and I'm going to use this for the rest of my life, and asking her why she ran for county legislator. She said, when I was with the United Way, I was asking the county board of legislators for money all of the time for different causes. Well, if I'm on the county board, I can help get that money directed to good causes. And it dawned on me to be there was more important than being the advocate on the outside. And I was just really, you talk about someone putting everything in perspective when you're trying to figure out how to also serve and what you should do. But I was also wanted to know, as a woman, I was very impressed with Sandy. How did she balance her life as a mom, a wife, and a public servant? And she said it was a challenge, to be at every game, and she wasn't at every game, but she was very active in her children's lives, and they said that as well. But she found that balance, and it worked for their family. She was on the board starting in 1980. In 1992, Assemblywoman Galiff was elected to the New York State Assembly. Her district covered the towns of Cortland, Austin, Kent, Phillipstown, and the city of Peekskill. She chaired the Real Estate Property Tax Committee and served as a member of the Corporations, Authorities, and Commissions Committee, the Election Law Committee, the Governmental Operations Committee, and the Health Committee. Galiff also served as the Assembly Majority Steering Committee and the Hudson Valley Greenway Committees Council. Former Assembly leadership positions include chair of the Libraries and Education Technology Committee, vice chair of the New York Legislative Women's Caucus, and chair of the Subcommittee for Rural Health. She is advocate for legislative reform in Albany, as well as being deeply involved in matters pertaining to education, tax reduction, government efficiency, environmental clean energy issues, consumer issues, health, voting rights, organ donation, the disability community, and senior citizens, among other causes. When we look at the legislation she has put forth, just bringing up two in particular, using the no bridge burned approach, Sandy sponsors successful legislation making the state constitution gender neutral. And she says it was controversial upstate people who were like, what does this woman from Westchester know? And she also convinced Albany to transition away from paper documents to digital, though it took some convincing. I just kept talking about it, kept working it, and eventually people changed their views. Her last piece of legislation allows anyone, not just clergy, to perform a marriage ceremony in New York State, and Governor Hochul signed it into law on December 28, 2022. So the impact of Sandy keeps going. I was really interested to find out she also hosted 2 local television programs, Speak Out with Sandy Galiff and Dear Sandy, about local and state initiatives and programs. And I did find some pictures of her doing so, which was really cool. She offered internships to high school and college students interested in government and politics. The program was designed not only to teach interns new skills and concepts, but was also to enhance ones they already have. And today, although she is retired, Sandy continues to support and inspire future leaders, especially women who are entering the political arena. And I think that Sandy, like when we talk about elders reaching back to younger people they're trying to bring up to take their place, is doing a phenomenal job in supporting us all, showing up. I've given a million presentations and I've turned around and I've seen Sandy at almost all of them. And she's just supportive, and she has not stopped working even in her retirement. So when we're recommending a street for someone, this is the least we can do for Sandy, who continues to work even in her retirement. The street that is proposed is Church Street and Highland Avenue, and she would like the street to be called Sandy Galiff Place.
Sandy Galiff what?
Place,
Place. Oh,
yes.
that's interesting. It's usually street or drive.
There's one other thing I did because she is still with us, and I did do an oral history with her. Jamie will distribute it later. I did an oral history with her, which I recorded and put pictures of her on top of it so you can listen to her history in her own voice.
I like the fact that it's thank you, historian Cole. I like the fact that you started with someone who's alive.
Yeah, because it's nice that we never get to give people their flowers when they're still here. We tend to do it when they're gone. And it's nice to be able to give it to her while she's still with us and still working and she can enjoy it.
So I think for me, the key takeaways, I've known Sandy a long time, is that she really has helped a lot of women at a time where it was very tough to get anywhere as a woman. There were also times in Ossining where it was very Republican. And so she also was part of the changeover from Republican to Democrat, and all of the trials and tribulations there, and mentoring people. Some very high-ranking folks in government actually started with her, I think, as high school, students working for her. And you're right, she is still doing things in the community. I saw her at some of your programs sitting right there. And she doesn't just come, she calls her friends and says, got to show up. And so, and her family still are here, grandchildren. I mean, it's quite lovely. Anyway, I am all for this and in support of it, but if anybody else has comments, questions. Anybody?
Well, I can think of a few people more deserving of this honor. And I had the pleasure of speaking with her and writing a little bio of her for the Democratic Journal, and she's delightful and just an amazing person. And I am very happy we're doing this.
I know you're the historian, but I am going to add, because some people who write to me about the work that you do, Joyce, oftentimes think you're a history teacher. That is not the role of a historian. The role that you're doing right now, which is part of our policy of naming streets, we don't just name it for anybody. There's a bunch of criteria that takes place, and the historian actually then does the research. Historians are not history teachers. They are actually people who bring different aspects of history specific to the municipality where they're appointed with their own lens, and really bring in a lot of golden nuggets. I appreciate that. I do want to add that one of the things that Sandy, I'm sure it's in your write-up, but we'd be here another hour, is she is and has been for many, many years a supporter of Sing Sing Museum. And I think it's been renamed, right? Sing Sing, is it Social Prison Museum, or I thought they were switching that over. She was as a private citizen, she was as a person in government, and that is unique to Ossining. And so I think there are a lot of people that are very grateful that she kept that going as well. And I think will continue from what I understand. So any objections for the street naming as we go through the policy of the board? Okay, thank you, Historian Cole, for everything. And I think, Sue, we're ready.
Okay, let's hear from Corporation Counsel Kahan.
Thank you, Sue. Good evening, folks. Tonight's agenda has three resolutions calling for public hearings regarding revisions to local laws, which were discussed last week. There's also a resolution calling for the appointment of a surveyor in connection with 43 South Highland Avenue, and the adoption of Local Law 7 of 2023, which is another local law amending Chapter 250. This particular amendment deals with fees as well as specific code violations, which will now become village code violations under our, if you want to call it, stop, stand, and park ordinances. So busy things with regard to all of those. And finally, there is a call for authorization to bid with regard to a VFD installation. We have our water superintendent here who will go into that with us. Variable frequency drive. Thank you, someone, I keep forgetting. And we can discuss that a little bit later. So thank you, Sue, and thank you, folks.
Thank you. Police Chief Sylvester.
Good evening. Just two quick things from the police department. One of our major projects right now, as the board knows, has been hiring, spending a tremendous amount of time meeting with candidates. We've transitioned from the local list to a countywide list. So we've spent quite a few full days meeting with candidates from all over Westchester County, some really good ones coming through. That process continues, hopefully to fill some of the vacancies we have in our department. Other thing to talk about tonight is the mobile crisis response team, as the village manager had mentioned. Yesterday, we attended the county executive's weekly briefing where he discussed this project, Project Alliance, as a multifaceted project trying to address the mental health crisis throughout Westchester County. Our role in this really is to work with the mobile crisis response team, which is an initiative funded and started by Westchester County through the Department of Community Mental Health. So we've partnered with their Commissioner Michael Orth, who's been fantastic with us. And after an RFP process, Family Services of Westchester is the vendor that works in this area. Drilled down all the way to David and Nicole, our two practitioners that run the team here in Ossining. So what we highlighted yesterday with the county executive and the deputy county executive is the work that that team does. Essentially what it is both mental health practitioners as well as peer support folks that are stationed in our police department. This is directly in response to all of, not just Ossining's, but all of the reform initiatives. It's something that was talked about for many, many years before that, but became a real highlight of our program during that period. And in response to that, we're grateful for Westchester County for funding that. As the board knows, when we discussed this, it was something that would be absolutely impossible for a small municipality to fund on the scale that Westchester County is doing. And even more importantly, it's a universal service that's provided throughout Westchester County. So our team is based out of our police station here. That was by demand. We decided if we're going to do this, we're going to go all in on this so that we'd have first access to them and they could learn the best way of doing policing, the way that we do it here. So they're based out of our police station. They cover Ossining, Briarcliff, Croton, Ossining, Briarcliff, Sleepy Hollow, Pleasantville, and Mount Pleasant. But based on, just FaceTime and their access to things, the majority of their work so far has been in Ossining. They're starting to branch out more to those other communities. Right now, they work from 7 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, two different teams that work full shifts. And, the idea here is that eventually it will be 24/7, 365. That is a challenge, as in any other industry, as we just said, with hiring, making sure that they have not only sufficient number of people to do it, but that they're best qualified to do it. So far, our experience has been really tremendous. This is probably the single biggest improvement to law enforcement I've seen during my career. What it really comes down to, a lot of people, when they hear mobile crisis, they believe that this is a team that's tasked with coming out only when we have things like barricaded subjects or people that are off medications and things like that. But the reality is they're coming on domestic violence calls. They're dealing with food insecurity. They're dealing with housing insecurity. They're dealing with people that are just struggling with everyday life issues. And what they are doing is delivering resources that police officers have been trying to deliver for years, but in a better way. I've seen people come into the police station now, and then rather than asking for a cop, they're asking specifically for David or Nicole because that's who they want to speak to. And cops are learning the system as they're there. One of the main reasons that I wanted them in our building is that the more time they spend with our officers, the more comfortable our officers are with having them as a resource. The initial version of this 15 or 20 years ago was a team that operated out of Westchester Medical Center. And when you called, they may be here in 20 minutes to an hour. Now they're walking out the door with cops. They're answering phones. They're speaking to people in the window at the police department. It is real, full-time, real-time service, and it's really amazing. So proud to share all of that good work at the county executive's briefing there. It really is their project, but we're super proud that it's something that we're facilitating here in Ossining. And I like to believe that we're really setting the tone for the rest of the county in this one because it's been very, very successful. That's all for us tonight. Thanks.
Just when you were with the county executive, did you have any sense that they are renewing? This is a 3-year pilot. What sense did you have? Because
I think we may
it's-
have made like a tongue-in-cheek comment that it's expected to be renewed forever. I don't see a way that this could ever not be funded. I think the conversation is not so much going to be about whether it's funded or not, more in how much more broadly it can be funded. So in other words, the end result of this, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, is going to be a mobile crisis team in every single police station. It's not going to be enough to have one in Ossining to cover our catchment area. It's going to have to be one in every one of those municipalities. So I would have to assume, without speaking for our friends in county government, I don't think the conversation is if, it's how. Because this really is, it's an indispensable service that I think everybody has to have. So it's just a matter of finding out, really, if we had all the money in the world, we still can't find enough qualified people to do the job that are interested in this type of work. So I think there's some moving parts that have to be worked out, but my expectation is that this would be renewed for a very long time.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that.
And any other com-
Okay.
okay. Organizational announcements. Announcements shall be event related only and shall be no longer in 2 minutes than 2 minutes in length. Is there anyone here to make an organizational announcement?
Jamie, is there
There's
anybody?
no one, I don't think the person in the gallery is looking to participate.
Thank you.
Okay,
Public comments on agenda items. Visitors are accorded a 1 4-minute opportunity to address the board on any of the resolutions on the agenda. Is there anyone here doing public comment on agenda items?
I again don't believe so.
Thank you. Visitor recognition. Visitors shall be accorded 1 3-minute opportunity to address the board on issues not relating to the agenda, but relevant to the common good of the village.
I think we're good. Oh, sorry.
you're good over there. We have somebody here.
I see. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Good evening.
Good evening, June Carver, 19 Lincoln, please. Awesome. So my first,
Can you speak into the microphone? I'm sorry, Joyce. June,
June Carver, 19 Lincoln, please.
I can't hear her.
Oh.
We're almost
there.
We're almost there. We're connecting.
That's what I'm really
Right.
barking.
So June Carver, 19 Lincoln, please. Awesomeing. I wanted to address the board first off of the last time I was here and I was told I could not ask any questions. And Rika and Robert, we were having this discussion that it's about just comments and no questions. So I looked at the village charter. Nowhere in the village charter does it says in an open meeting, I cannot ask a question. Went to the New York State open meeting law. Nowhere does it say that I could not ask a question. I made some phone calls and asked some people in legislative in the county. Nowhere did they say that I could not ask a question in an open meeting. So I could ask a question, but you can choose not to answer it. And as a community member, I would think that as a public servant, you would want to answer questions of the community. So I just wanted to put that out there so that if there's a place that you can show me where it says in an open meeting, but I did look at New York State open meeting law and nowhere does it say that. So that goes on to my next comment / maybe a question here or there. When are we going to discuss the affordable housing unit that has been placed? I'm not going to say on hold, but there are some things that we have to go through. The Con Ed issue that I asked the question that wasn't answered because I was told not to ask the question. So I'm putting that on the table because I've heard many discussions over this past month about mixed use things coming, apartments coming. We have not addressed the affordable housing unit. It has been placed on hold ever since not placed on hold as far as being done, but I have not heard anything. The community has not heard anything ever since the Con Ed issue.
So I'm gonna answer this. It wasn't that you can't ask questions. It's that we're not going to have a conversation. It is 4 minutes of listening. The board is here to listen to members of the public who want to speak, comment, ask questions. We take it in, we take notes. Also, it was suggested that you email the board with questions you have and we would answer them. As for this piece, we had lots of public conversation about it and we update the projects as we go through the projects. That particular project gets updated when we have new information. If we don't have new information, we don't update. We have multiple projects and we update as things change or become available to us. Right now, unless there's been a status change that I'm not aware of, there hasn't been a status change on that project. When there is one, then we will bring it up on these agendas and we put things on the agendas where there is a status change. That's my answer right now.
May I?
Oh,
may
of
I
course, please.
First, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Absolutely. So I want to first thank you for doing the research, and what you pulled up was absolutely correct, that there's nothing in the charter or in the law that says how these particular meetings need to be governed, or what the process should be. Different municipalities and different bodies of government choose to do different things to solve different problems when it comes to how you interact with the government. So when I was in White Plains, one of the things that they found was that they had a lot of people that came out to their public meetings, and their meetings are also on television. And it turned out that there were people that just like to see themselves on television. And so they, one of the decisions they made was, so we have the cameras, they're facing us. We also have a camera that shows the whole room. Their cameras would only show the board and wouldn't show the public. And that move was done in response to that. I've only been here for a relatively short amount of time compared to some of my colleagues on the board and others. But in the past, one of the things that, from my understanding, has happened is that we have had folks that come in and will bring up a topic, and then there will be a response from the board, and then the person will respond, and there's kind of a conversation. Sometimes it gets elevated and so forth. And if there are a lot of people, then that can create kind of an extended process of public comment. So in order to try to make it manageable, the decision was made, okay, let's make it so that it's 4 minutes. You can say whatever you'd like, ask questions, make comments, whatever you'd like, and then the board will take that into consideration. We're now at a point where, particularly post-pandemic, very few people come to our meetings. And so just like this, you're the only person here. It makes sense. We can have a conversation. The challenge is down the road, inshallah, we have a lot of people that come to our meetings, and it's wonderful. So many people come. And someone says, but when June was here, you had a conversation with her, and now you don't want to respond. So then it looks like we're being inconsistent, playing favorites, whatever it is. You're one of our favorites, you show up. So you're one of our favorites automatically. No problem. And so that is essentially why we're trying to hold this consistency in terms of policy and the not responding, answering questions, whatever. So that's specifically what that's about. And to your second point, the mayor is correct that the projects get updated as there are updates. Unfortunately, at this point, we don't have a specific update to share. It's still stuck in Con Ed purgatory in trying to figure out what the move there is going to be. But as soon as we have an update, believe me, we will be announcing it. It's something that I and Trustee Fritchie have been working hard on since the inception of the project. We're on weekly calls with the developer and the village and trying to figure out how we can keep the project moving. So your concern, I would say, is heard, and continue. I would encourage you to continue advocating for it, because that way, when we go to Con Ed and other places, we can say the public is telling us where is the building, where are the updates, and it's not just us making the claim.
Well, I just want to say that is an update. What you just did right here, right now, to me, is an update. That has not been happening.
So I'd
like
also like to clarify that,
Okay.
because it's a little bit more nuanced than that. The time it takes to do these projects, which are largely funded by government entities, in this case, the state and the county, is enormously long lead time, much, much, much longer than it would take if somebody was coming in to develop on private property. So in addition to Con Edison, there's also negotiations that we have to have with the county about the transfer of the property from the village to the developer. It's not that, but I want to be clear. The project is going forward. It's not, there's no risk. It's been through the planning process. It's approved. It is going forward. But the process for which it does just happens to be a slow one. Slower than we would like, certainly, and slower than I think everybody else would like. The fact that we don't report on any week is because it's just I want the public, you and the public, to understand. There's no like, hey, we're not going to do this. This is as done a deal as we can get. The only way that it wouldn't happen is if financing fell through at the government level. It would have nothing to do with the village. So, which I think is very unlikely. So let me just caveat. But there is a process that goes beyond what we have any control of here. And I can absolutely, we work with New York State's Homes and Community Renewal, which is also very welcome to accept questions from the public too about the process. These are tax credit projects. They're subsidized projects. That's just the reality that we live in. We do have a project map online, and as things are updated, you can see in real time. Some things you may not see updates for a very, very long time because there's no information to really change. And at that point, what Deputy Mayor said was correct. There really hasn't been a major change that's worthy of an update. So if we're not updating, that means the status is the same. So that's why we don't update all the time. But I just want to reassure everybody that doesn't mean that the project has stopped. If it stops, that is a huge status update that you will be aware of. But right now, if we're lucky at the rate we're going, we are hopeful that we will break ground in early 2024. It depends on a lot of things that are just out of our control, though. And as we do that, but again, if you don't hear an update on a project that's gone as far as this one, that means there is no update.
Right, but what I'm saying is that you have a duty to the public, to the community, to let us know whether or not that I'm not saying that the community might think that it stopped, but at least give the courtesy of this is what's happening. And although that it is a standstill, then it's still, when there's a situation at your home and your Con Ed goes out, you want to know you want to have some little updates of what's happening. Not that you don't think Con Ed is working on the situation, but you want to know what is happening so that you are conscious of that it's going to take time. Yes, but at least have the courtesy to give us an update, the community, because it is something that is needed. It is something that people are watching. So that's what I'm saying. Not that you're not going to do it. And as far as to you,
Omar, feel
Omar?
free. Yes.
Omar,
So my mama calls me.
I hear you,
Yeah.
but I was told that I could not. I wasn't asking to have a conversation. I asked a question. I asked a question about the time frame that Con Ed had given the village manager. I just asked a question, and then it was told to me, stop me in my tracks. It was told that it was not going to be a question and answer period. So I'm not asking you to have a conversation, but I am not going to stop asking a question unless it is written somewhere. You do nothing here unless it is adopted into law, it has to be adopted, and it has to be in writing for you to carry it out. So there's no one else here. Nobody ever. So whether it's going to happen in the near future, right now, my question should have been either answered or said, I don't know, or we just don't have time for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We ready? Ready to go?
Yeah.
Village Board resolutions. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the June 7th, 2023 regular meeting as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of voucher detail report, June 21st, 2023. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated June 21st, 2023 in the amount of $729,747.20. Do I have a motion?
So move. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Extension of the preferred development status of WBP Development LLC and St. Catherine Group for the Main Street parking lots. Whereas the Board of Trustees by resolution approved on November 2nd, 2022, authorized the village manager to enter into a letter agreement designating WBP Development LLC and the St. Catherine's Group, Inc. as the preferred developer of the village-owned property known as Main Street and Market Square parking lots. And whereas the first period of the exclusivity of the preferred development for the property ran for 180 days from November 15th, 2022 to May 14th, 2023. And whereas the November 2nd, 2022 resolution in part provided in part that that the term of the preferred development status will be 180 days, which term can be extended by mutual consent of the village and the preferred developer. And whereas subsequent, sorry about that, to the adoption of the November 2nd, 2022 resolution, this village WBP Development LLC and St. Catherine's Group, Inc. agreed that the area to be developed would be the above described Main Street parking lot alone. And whereas the Village of Austin Board of Trustees, WBP Development LLC and St. Catherine Group Incorporated want to extend the period of exclusivity for the Main Street parking lot for an additional 180 days to November 10th, 2023 to facilitate continued public engagement, due diligence, and action towards the completion of an acceptable plan for the redevelopment of the property and the drafting of the finalization of necessary contract documents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the exclusivity is extended to November 10th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Any comments? How many extensions? Is there like limits to extensions? Okay, so this is just because. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Call for a public hearing, proposed local law 2023 entitled a local law amending chapter 250 vehicles and traffic, section 250-32 parking time limits in designated municipal parking lots, section 250-33 permit parking fees, and section 250-62.2 schedule 28.
27.
That's okay. Off-street metered parking lots of the municipal Austining code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 PM on July 19th at the Municipal Building, 16 Croton Avenue, first floor boardroom, Austining, New York, to consider proposed law 2023 entitled a local law amending chapter 250 vehicles and traffic at section 250-32 parking time limits in designated municipal parking lots, section 250-33 permitted parking fees, and section 250-62.2 schedule 27 off-street metered parking lots of the Village of Austin Code, and be it further resolved that the proposed local law amends section 250-32 regarding the parking at the municipal parking lots, amended section 250-33 to include the Main Street employee parking permit, and amends section 250-62.2 schedule 17, excuse me, listing the municipal parking lots available and number of metered parking spots. And be it further resolved that the members of the public are invited to attend the public hearing in person at the above referenced location. And be it further resolved that those members of the public requiring reasonable accommodation to participate in the public hearing due to the person's disabilities shall notify Corporation Council no longer than 7 days before the public hearing to afford the public significant time to provide reasonable accommodation, and be it further resolved that those members of the public who want to attend or participate in the public hearing remotely access will be available in a Zoom platform. And be it further resolved that the comments regarding the proposed local law will be accepted by the Board of Trustees at the BOT at thevillageofaustin.org. Do I have a motion?
So move. Second.
Any comments on this? We discussed it last week, but are there, we're good?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on. Excuse me.
E.
Adoption, this is a roll call vote. Adoption of local law number 7, 2023, a local law amending chapter 250 vehicles and traffic of the Village of Austin Code. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austin, Village Board, have been considering the adoption of a proposed local law 2023 entitled a local law amending chapter 250 vehicles and traffic and of the Village of Austin Code. And whereas the public hearing was conducted on June 7th, 2023, at 7:30 PM at the Municipal Building, 16 Croton Avenue, Austin, New York, and via Zoom platform affording members of the public the opportunity to be heard. And whereas the public hearing was closed on June 7th, 2023, and whereas there is no impediments to approving the proposed local law, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby adopts local law 7-2023, a local law amending chapter 250 vehicles and traffic, and directs the said law to be filed and distributed in accordance to the applicable law. And be it further resolved that local law number 7 shall take effect upon filing with the Secretary of State pursuant with the municipal home rule law. Roll call vote. Oh, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Any comments, questions?
Okay.
Just, sorry, Sue. So this is
Yeah.
the law that we were talking about, that we need to do something in the village as well, marking the streets, correct? The sidewalks, the 20 feet ticketing, is that this law, this one? Refresh my memory.
Sorry. Good evening. I think when Paul was here last week, he said marking the sidewalks was something he wasn't prepared to do, but in terms of making sure that the signage was consistent, like 20 feet from a stop sign and things of that nature.
Yeah,
Yes.
he was
Yeah.
concerned that you don't always see the yellow markings, but the signage
Yeah,
would be
yellow
there.
mark, yeah, I totally understand that. So again, because we're passing a law where the police department, police officers are gonna be enforcing this. So I want to make sure that coordination is pretty much everywhere that this is gonna apply. So I'm not sure how is this gonna work if there's no markings, is the sign gonna be 20 feet away from the corner? Is
You-
all signs gonna be 20 feet from the corner?
You don't have to mark every corner. It's not required to have a sign. It's in the law that every corner has that. However, where we have areas where people have been parking there and not ticketed for some time because either it became customary or because somebody wasn't sure where the 20-foot mark was and it crept back. Those are areas where we'll ask for signs so that people can have notice, because it's always fair to people to know what it is beforehand. Where
That's-
there's an
that's my
area that
concern.
people aren't, you
Yeah.
don't have to have the sign in order to write the ticket, but we will ask for signs in areas where it appears that people may not realize what's going on, because the goal is not to catch people by surprise. It's to create voluntary compliance. That's the ultimate goal of all this.
And that's gonna be obviously communicating with the department itself as well. Because
So
I
the
know they're
cops?
enforcing a lot. Yeah, I know they're enforcing parking a lot.
I mean,
this past
there's
Couple months.
there's no way that we can possibly ensure that every person is aware of everything on every roadway before the ticket's written. So I can't say that we're not instructing anybody to hold off on issuing tickets.
Okay, well,
But
that's my, so right now, we don't have anything on the law per se that it says 20 feet from the
There's a
corner.
vehicle and traffic law on the books right
The
now.
state law, the state law.
The law is not changing. It's merely being
It's just
backed up
being
by a
backed.
local
Okay.
code. So the cops aren't being told to do anything differently, but where we do this on a regular basis, where we find an area that's problematic. For instance, there was a conversation about Murray Lane where teachers were parking because there's an issue there during the day, or family members visiting the school, and someone complained. So we'd asked for signage to be put up there so people know where the mark is, so they're not too close to the corner. Where we find a problem, we ask for additional signage. Where it's not necessary, we don't ask for signs to be put up, but it's not required.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Chief. Karen, I have another question. So right next to Nelson City Park, right across the street from Park Lane High School, do we usually mark the spots on the streets? Okay, so that whole street in there is being marked.
Nelson Sitting Park
It's parking spaces. Yeah, parking spaces is being marked.
is being marked now.
It's there. It's been there.
So I wasn't aware. I'm going to be perfectly honest. So I'll have to talk to Paul. I don't know what
Edward Street?
there are no diagonal spots.
No, I didn't say that. The diagonal spots is on the other side. I'm talking
On
about.
the
little
Spring
bits
Street
that's
side?
between Park and the City Park, exactly, and Edwards.
mean-
Is it Edwards? I don't think it's Edwards.
Between the street between Park School and Nelson Sitting Park,
Oh.
Everett Avenue, right?
Everett Avenue.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm
So
going
that,
to
that
have
is
to
all
talk.
marked.
All right, I'm going to have to talk to Paul. I
What's
wasn't aware
the
that that was
problem
a-
if it is being marked?
So we are selecting marking some streets. And then if that's the case, then why we not mark every street?
let me get an update because I wasn't aware that that project, that's not
See why
something that's
they're
on my
doing it.
radar. So let me double check and I'll get back to the board with an update on what what
Okay,
we're
so that will
doing,
be
and what
for
the plan
next
is.
Tuesday, maybe, or
I
next,
could get
next
back to
meeting?
you tomorrow with it, with an email to
That'd be
everybody.
great.
So.
Okay.
Also, just so we're clear, Paul was not a fan of doing the yellow, but I didn't walk away from that meeting with that understanding. Some of us are fans of marking and painting the curbs yellow. That's not his decision, actually, of if the board wants to do things. What I asked for is that it be put in the budget and timing, because I think when people park, they don't know 20 feet from 18 feet, from 14 feet, from 10 feet. I am not really good at understanding distance. And all over the world, including New York City, where there is so much going on, it's not unusual to redo those yellow stripings on the, I don't think they're called
Yeah,
stripings. I think they're just
including,
painting.
yeah,
the curb.
including the
I
fire
understand the
hydrants.
paint like wears down, so
the-
it wears down every 5 years, repaint it. I am a fan of actually doing that on the
Sana?
curbs.
Sana?
While I appreciate the engineer's recommendation, unless there's a reason why we can't do it, that I would have to hear, that's not what I walked away from.
Yeah, and
last
also
week.
is
I
we-
walked away with exactly the opposite impression.
Yeah, we were talking also about the fire hydrants as well. So I was
Right.
told that it's 15
So-
feet from each side.
I think what I asked for is a budget for 24 that delineates how much has to get done, what it'll cost, so that we can approve or not approve it, not whether we're going to do it or not, but that it be presented to us for the next budgets, just like sidewalks and everything else. So we don't go willy-nilly or fit it between other projects, because then we're stopping other things from getting done. And I think that's where we left it. So I just want to be
So
clear
some of
that
this,
that's
though, is
still on
going to
the
have to be
table.
done now because we're enacting this now. So I think the signage, I mean, Kevin, you were going to say something.
So I think that everybody should just be aware that when you mark spaces on the street, oftentimes those are corresponding to a metered space. And when you have a metered space, you can ticket somebody for, if they're in 2 spaces, you end up having a problem. If you're not in a space, you're a problem because they're not in a metered spot. If you simply draw lines on the street, you run into a problem of if somebody just decides to park over the lines into 2 spots, you create this confusion of where am I allowed to park? What do you do with the complaints for those? If they're there, I think it needs to be recognized that lines on the street without meters are merely a guideline for how people should park their cars. It's a vague number of cars that can fit there, but if you've ever seen an area that's congested, for instance, I could see it happening at Park School. You mark 5 spots, they're going to fit 7 cars in those spots. And there's nothing you can do to stop that from happening because there's no law that prohibits people from parking in multiple spots when lines are drawn on the street if there's no law. If they're on Main Street where it's a metered spot and they're parked in 2 spots, theoretically, they could be charged for either or both if they haven't fed the meter, if they're parked in both parking spaces. That's one of the issues to consider if you're going to line some streets, all streets, whatever. In terms of curbs, I'm always supportive of more visual indicators for people to know where they shouldn't park. That's always helpful, I think, to people. A red curb says don't park here, yellow curb says don't park here, for different reasons. Blue curbs, the same. But the lines on the street, I would just suggest to be thoughtful about what the result of that may be.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't suggesting to mark the streets. What I was asking is like, why, if we marking one specific street, why we not doing all of them, you know?
Yeah, no, I can find that out for you. That's that.
We're having
sure there's-
sort of 2
there's
different
a-
conversations.
So, but I
no,
think let's
but I agree-
clarify.
One is
I
about
agree.
part, the
Yeah, I agree with
spaces.
the marking.
We moved on from
No
that,
one's-
and now we're
again,
going
if
into.
we decide
the
we, if
curbs.
we want to sign, I think signage and marking the curbs, none of those are significant budgetary expenses. So some of it will have to do as we, we want to make sure, as trustee Casada said, that we're making people aware so that they're not blindsided by getting a ticket when they hadn't been getting a ticket or something like that. So we want to prepare that. So we'll get back to the board on that. And as far as more expansive projects throughout the village, as we go forward, what's not done this year will definitely be reflected in the budget for next year.
Okay. Are we ready? Trustee Fritchie,
Aye.
trustee Casada,
Aye.
trustee White,
Aye.
deputy mayor Lopez,
Aye.
Mayor Levin.
Aye.
Adoption to change in the fee schedule for 2023 other than water and sewer fees. Whereas the village adopted financial goals and policies requires in part the establishment of a periodic evaluation of user charges and fees to reduce the reliance on real property taxes. And whereas on June 21st, 2023, the Board of Trustees adopted Law 7-2023, which amended Chapter 250, Vehicles and Traffic, and more particularly Article 3, Parking, Standing, and Stopping. And whereas the part of the local law, the Board of Trustees adopted Section 250-62.3, Schedule 28, fines and penalties for stopping, standing, and parking and other miscellaneous violations. And whereas the local law 7/2023 shall be in effect upon filing with the Secretary of State in accordance with the municipal home rule law. And whereas the schedule of fines and penalties for stopping, standing, and other violations shall be made part of the village code. Resolved that the village fee schedule be amended upon filing with local law 7-2023 to include the following fines and penalties for stopping, standing, parking, and other violations. And the list of the violations will be posted on the wall outside the clerk's office, and it's also on the internet. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Was that a comment or were you just trying
No,
to
I was
get in
gonna
a
say
second?
second.
Okay, so again, we had lots of discussion about this past couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks. So, good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Designation of persons to conduct a survey of the building at 43 South Highland Avenue and authorizing the Corporation Council to commence litigation determining that the building is a public nuisance and directing that it be repaired. Whereas on March 23rd, 2023, Senior Code Enforcement Officer Gregory Gross sent a letter of repair and vacate premises notice to 43 South Highland Avenue LLC and the owner of 43 South Highland Avenue, Village of Austin. And whereas the owner was advised that the building is considered unsafe pursuant with Section 95-3D, E, I, and J in the Village of Austin Code, as structural issues were observed on various exterior stairs, handrails, girders, guardrails, concrete slabs, and exterior walkways, and upon several apartment decks. And whereas the owner has not commenced the repair noted in the notice of repair and vacate property. Whereas pursuit,
Gonna,
okay, I'm
um,
sorry.
whereas the notice further provided that the repair work was to be started within 10 days of service of notice, with the work to be completed within 30 days. And then you
Right.
read the next sentence.
Right. Whereas pursuant with the Village of Austin Code 95-7, the Village of Austin Building Inspector prepared a letter dated May 18th, 2023 to the Board of Trustees requesting that a survey be made of the premises. And whereas the Board of Trustees finds that the appointment of surveyors is warranted due to the reported unsafe conditions of 43 South Highland Avenue. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees designates Building Inspector Joe Augustinelli and Michael Macari, thank you, sir, PE, Grossfield Macari Consulting Engineers, PC of 34 Shroud Blow Hill Road, Ridgefield, Connecticut, 06877, to make a survey of 43 South Highland Avenue and provide a report to the village clerk no later than 30 days from the date of notification of their designation. And therefore be it resolved that the survey report determines that 43, if the survey determines that 43 South Highland Avenue is unsafe, the Corporation Council pursuant with Section 95-10 shall make an application to the Supreme Court, Westchester County, for the order determining that 43 South Highland Avenue be a public nuisance and directing that the building be repaired. And it is further resolved that the pursuant with the Village Code Section 95-11, the village shall compensate the two surveyors appointed by the village at the sum of the agreed upon, depending upon the size of the structure to be surveyed and related to the special skills or professional standings of the surveys engaged. And therefore be it resolved, it shall be the duty of the Corporation Council to to institute contempt proceedings in the event that any owner or agent following having control of the building or structure fails to remove, repair, or rehabilitate in the same, or fails to obey any order or mandate by any judge having jurisdiction thereof. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Stuart, it's a long one. It's something new. Can you give us a synopsis of what's happening here so people understand? And then I have two questions.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a provision under the code which allows the board to, based upon a report from the building inspector, to have surveyors appointed to ultimately provide a report as to whether or not the building is unsafe. The owner of the building has the opportunity to appoint a third surveyor if they so choose. If not, the two surveyors appointed by the village will do that. If there is a report finding that the building is unsafe, there will then be an application made to the court in White Plains for an order directing that the building be repaired. If that order is not complied with, there can be a motion made for contempt as a result of the building owner's failure to undertake the necessary repairs.
Thank you. So we're taking this to Supreme if the owner does not respond in a timely manner.
No, we're taking this to Supreme if there is a report that determines that the building is unsafe.
Thank you. That's great clarifications. I also wanted to ask on sort of behalf of the public, costs involved in this, does that also go directly to court for reimbursement? Can we charge the owner for all of the costs involved in this procedure or not?
The way the code is worded, if the building were to be demolished, the fees could be charged as part of taxes, but it does not deal simply with a repair. The code is not worded that way, so my answer would be no.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Questions, comments?
So I think, thank you, Stuart. And I think my only comment for that will be, because this is not the first time we have done something like this. I think my recollection is at least 2 previous times we have assigned or appoint a surveyor or a structural engineer to review something like this. My suggestion will be that we should have some sort of limitations. That it does have to come from, that we did need to get the money back at some point. It's not fair for us to be using taxpayers' money to hire an outside consultant to determine this kind of issues and other properties that they're not willing to maintain. That would
Because you're right, because the landlord,
Correct.
according to our folks, is not maintaining the building properly. Of
I
course,
think
the
going
landlord would say
forward,
differently,
we
but
should
yeah.
look into this law and probably amend the law at some point, either a cap or the whole thing, just the way we do for, property maintenance items,
Yeah.
for cutting the lawn, cleaning of the sidewalks. We do get, I don't want to say reimbursed, but we have the ability to put that back into the taxes where we get the money back.
So I have actually proposed that we start having Dale create blended rates for legal time on certain issues along with staff time and outside time. Document them, and in cases where we're able to get reimbursed. Otherwise, we have people who basically abuse us. Their answer is, hey, you guys go figure it out and then I'll deal with it in plain English. So we need to start creating that in addition to what you said, because we could do a cap, but we could also do blended rates and charge it off
Yeah.
to the person who's
mean,
not responding and not doing what they're supposed to,
I
if
agree.
that's the
I mean,
case. Yeah.
that's something that we have done within the building department. We have created an escrow account. Sure, we do have that, and that's something that happens. We changed to amend our laws not too long ago as well. In
Right.
regards to that. So
Right here, there wouldn't be an escrow account, but the concept.
no.
But you're saying the
exactly.
concept of not doing the work for property owners and
It's-
all
to
that, or
me, it's
people
not-
that
yeah,
simply don't
it's-
even
it's not
respond
fair
to our
for-
building
for the
department.
taxpayers,
Right,
for
we
the
should get their
constituent to
money
actually pay
back.
for it. So,
Yeah. Well, anyway, so I mean, it's consistent with some of the conversations. If we can get that going, that'll be helpful. When are we going to know, when is this happening, et cetera?
The notice will be sent out either tomorrow or Friday to the owner. He has, I believe, 30 days to notice if he's going to appoint his own surveyor. And if not, we will have the ability to go and do what we need to do. If for some reason we need to actually get into the building and the owner will not permit it, we will go to court to seek a warrant allowing that admission.
Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Opposed? Call for a public hearing, proposed law to 2023 entitled A Local Law Adding Chapter 7 Candidate Disclosure to the Village of Austining Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby calls a public hearing to take place at 7:30 PM on July 19th, 2023 at the Municipal Building, 16 Croton Avenue, first floor, boardroom, Austining, New York, to consider proposed local law that 2023 entitled A Local Law Adding Chapter 7 Candidate Disclosure to the Village of Austining Code. And therefore, be it resolved that the proposed local law will add a new Chapter 7 whereby nominated candidates and appointees to village elected offices, mayors and trustees shall complete a candidate disclosure form requiring certain information, name, education, employment, and military service, and be it further resolved that the members of the public are invited to attend the public hearing in person at the above referenced location, and therefore be it resolved that these members of the public requiring a reasonable accommodation to participate in the public hearing due to the person's disability shall notify Corporation Council no later than 7 days before the public hearing and afford the village sufficient time to provide reasonable accommodations, and be it therefore resolved that those members of the public who want to attend or participate in the public hearing remotely, access will be available by the Zoom platform, and be it further resolved that the comments, didn't mean to go up like that. The comments regarding the proposed local law will be accepted by the Board of Trustees at bot@villageofaustining.org. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, call for a public hearing, proposed law 2023 entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 57, Video Conferencing by Public Bodies of the Austining Village Code. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby calls for a public hearing to take place at 7:30 PM or thereabout. We have to start saying or thereabout. July 19th, 2023 at the Municipal Building, 16 Croton Avenue, first floor boardroom, Austining, New York, to consider proposed law 2023 entitled A Local Law Amending 57 Video Conferencing of Public Bodies of the Village of Austining Code, and be it further resolved that the proposed local law amends Chapter 57 by authorizing a member of the public body who has a disability as defined in New York State Executive Law, Section 292, to attend the public body's meeting remotely and be counted to be present for fulfilling the quorum requirements of the public body, and therefore be it resolved that the members of the public are invited to attend the public hearing in person at the above referenced location, and be it further resolved that the members of the public requiring special accommodations to participate in the public hearing due to the person's disability shall notify Corporation Council no later than 7 days before the public hearing to afford the village sufficient time to provide reasonable accommodations, and therefore be it resolved that the members of the public who want to participate in the public hearing remotely, access will be available through the Zoom platform, and be it resolved that comments regarding the proposed local law will be accepted by the Board of Trustees at the bot@villageofaustining.org. Do I have a motion?
So move. Second.
Any comments? Sue?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. DPW, where's Andy? I'm just going to give Andy a look. Authorization to advertise for bids, contract DPW 2305, the VFD installation at the Pleasantville Pump Station for Lakeville Tank Rehabilitation. Resolved that, subject to review of Corporation Council, the village clerk is authorized to advertise for bids of contract to DPW 23-05 VFD installation at the Pleasantville Pump Station for Lakeville Tank Rehabilitation. Such bids will be returnable to the village clerk. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Any comments?
Just
Yeah, I
one-
do. What is
I
this?
have one question. If it's
I think it's
variable frequency drive, it brings motors up and down so they don't have a shock to them. Is this a replacement? Oh, it's new.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
got to go on the mic.
Well, you're here.
Yep. Good evening, everybody. It's exactly what trustee said. It controls the speed of motors. It matches the flow rates that are needed because the following year we will be, it's in the process with an engineering firm to submit. I'm actually signing the drawings tomorrow for the health department to paint the Lakeville tank, Bracken Road. But in order to take that tank out of service for 6 months, we have to put
Oh,
pressure vessels throughout the system and they will provide pressure with pumps like this that will change flow rates, which we can maintain a pressure. Yep. It's pretty technical, but it's
Okay.
easy too, so.
is there a cost involved
How
here?
big,
or-
how big is,
Yeah, so we'll go out to bid. It's 100 horsepower motor, and it's probably gonna cost between 100 and 120,000.
yeah, you answered my question. I was gonna ask you how big the motor was.
And it's, we're gonna be taking a soft start out that's there, right? You know what that is.
Yeah.
And the VFD will go in place.
We're talking just to.
Yeah. Yeah. So the VFD will go in place of that, but we need to change the wiring to be able to handle this capacity. So that's why it's more than just changing a VFD. There's some field work involved.
Could I possibly? Makes sense. Thank you.
Oh, I thought you had a question. I'm like, all right, okay. Okay, anybody else with questions or comments?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
We were chuckling because we've gone out to bid a lot, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there any continuing business of the board?
Yeah, I have a couple. Stuart, anything with the Hunter Street scenario? We went through this whole resolution and deal and conversations and where are we?
On the day of the closing, the prospective purchaser indicated that he was not happy with our restriction, which he has known about from the beginning, that he couldn't build there. So we are still holding his down payment. I have not heard from Mr. Galgano, who is the prospective purchaser. When he wishes to get in touch with me, I'll be happy to talk to him, but it's very clear that they can't build there. And that was in all the documents.
Yeah, I thought that was from beginning. We had that
So,
very long discussion.
that's why that's why it has not been closed.
Okay, so I don't really see an upside or downside here, but I'm gonna ask the board. Should we just give him 30 days and then close and give him his money back? Because I don't like these things hanging over because then it starts being the village doesn't want to do this and the village doesn't want to do that. So let's avoid what the village doesn't want to do because I think the reverse scenario is here. I'd like to set a date.
If I
and-
can, Mayor, just to be
Yeah.
clear, he's been notified 4 times by myself and Sonia to get in touch with me.
Understood.
No,
So-
no, but it's not, so it's on them. It's not on us. It's on them. I mean, I'm holding his 10% or Sonia's. So he wants to, it rests with them. They don't want to go ahead with the deal. I'm more than happy to give him back his escrow, but I don't, it's not our job to basically track the man down.
That's not what I'm saying,
No, but I wanted to be clear is we have asked him to contact us.
but it's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I'd like to close these things, send the check and say, we're done. Have a nice day, because it gives us an opportunity. If he wants to open the negotiation, the price is going to be quite different because he's now wasted numerous hours of people's times that cost taxpayers money. And that also is not our job. If you reach out to somebody 4 times, give them 30 days, tell them the board has suggested, or at least I'm suggesting, you got 30 days, we don't hear back from you, we're returning your check, the negotiations start again. This time, however, we expect payment for staff time that we will tell you what the rate is, because we keep doing other people's work. And I personally think it is a waste of staff time. 4 times you reach out to somebody, I agree with you, but that's not my point being made here at all.
My
I think we
point,
need to
Mayor, is
close
if we
the door.
wanted to, we could keep the money.
That's
No,
also.
We can keep the deposit.
I'm, okay.
No, I'm just making the point is that he signed a contract.
Hmm.
So, but I will be happy to give him 30 days notice. If that's what the board wants.
Um,
happy to do it.
Simply, I think I'm right, I'm allowed to do this on the new business. So I just want to bring this up because it occurs to me that we need to start sort of saying, here's what we agreed to. I don't know what you heard. We're closing the books. I'm not looking to make money on these things. You could say that you've now wasted our time. We're keeping the money. Have a nice day. But I feel like we need to learn to sort of close the door and move to other projects. Because what happens is 3 months later, people say, I try to do this, the village doesn't listen to me. And then we end up defending ourselves for something we don't need to spend our time. Or maybe it's just me and everybody else says, doesn't really matter, just keep going the way it is, it's fine with us. I'm just trying to sort of wrap my head around.
I agree with you. I agree with the 30 days, but I also, with the caveat that we don't give them the money back. What's it, $2,000?
Whatever we held it. I
We'll
think
do
it was
it.
the whole deal was
We've-
16, so
we've-
it's probably, I don't, maybe 2,000 at the most.
At the most. And we've invested that much time in it. So
Easily.
as far as I'm concerned, it's a wash. We give him 30 days. If he doesn't make his mind up, thank you. Next.
Are you allowed to keep the money if you give them that notice, the deposit?
Yeah, because actually I believe time was of the essence in the contract, so it was supposed to close.
Okay.
Can I
So
add?
I just want to open, I know I'm opening up on a new business, but I feel like we need to close some of this
All right,
things.
so
out.
I want to add to that. If this person does not sign the contract, comes and agrees with all the terms, regardless if we give the money back or we keep the money, it doesn't matter. If the deal doesn't go through, he's still using the property. So what are we gonna do about that?
For the cars that are there, not for what he wants. to
No,
do.
exactly, but he's still using the property, which is village property, which is not supposed to be doing that. So what are we gonna do about that? Which he's not supposed to be doing.
Take the $2,000, put it up.
He's been doing that for a long time. It allows more people to park, but to me, it's a separate, I know you might say it's the same conversation. For me, it's a separate conversation. For me, the conversation is, went through a negotiation, we did the right thing, we went through the whole process, and now you're playing with us. I'm getting tired of people playing with us, not just him, others, and I think we have to have a precedent, not a precedent, but we need to open, negotiate, close. The other issue of what happens to those cars that has, for so long, people have just been parking. We actually didn't have a problem if he uses it for parking. We had a problem that, like, you can't build on it, we need the easement, we need to get into that property, et cetera, et cetera.
No,
So
and-
I'm sort of focused on that.
Okay,
I
so that's,
understand what
that's
you're
fine.
saying.
So okay, so
To me,
let's
it's
say,
two different transactions, is my point, Manny.
not really,
not
because now,
saying
we are letting someone use village property without doing anything. So because if I park in the street,
Mhm.
where I'm not supposed to be parked, if I park in a sidewalk and I'm not supposed to be parked there, sure, something's gonna happen,
Right.
sure. So now we allowing this person to park in village own property and nothing's been happening for years. So now this guy can say, you know what, I lost $2,000. The only thing that we limited himself now is to build something in there that it looks like that's what he wanted to do, but he's still gonna be using the property for his personal use. So what are we gonna do about that if this transition doesn't happen? You said that that's totally separate conversation.
I said
But-
for me.
okay.
I didn't say, I said for me, it was more
Okay.
about.
So
this other part.
so I'm gonna take this to the next level. So Stuart, and I'm not sure, and I guess you have sort of more or less, let's say if the will of the board is to give this person 30 more days. So in 31 days, I want to have this conversation if this guy doesn't sign the contract. I want to know what's going to happen at 31 day, 30, pretty much in, let's say 32 days.
Well, it comes back to the village. You want to know what we're going to do.
But
about it.
exactly, what are we gonna do about it? We're gonna fence this out? Are we gonna put, yeah, that's fine. So I'm gonna have that conversation after the 30 days are up there.
Any thoughts? We've been discussing this before.
My position is that, I mean, there's already kind of 3 folks in favor of the 30 days. I don't feel strongly about it. I would generally follow the staff's recommendation if there were a financial reason. So for example, when you issue a check, typically it says you have to cash it within like 90 days or whatever. And then if you don't, then it's void, right? So if there was something like that, that's like, we have to hold on to the money. And if we don't, then it carries over. If Dale comes up with an argument like that, then I'm like, great. So let's do what they recommend. Otherwise, it just seems petty and capricious and small. And I'm not a professional, anything. I don't know. So like, maybe we do that. We give him 30 days. We say, here's your money. He never cashes the check, makes no difference. What difference does it actually make? So I don't feel strongly about that. Number two, in terms of what do we do? I'm open to the conversation. What, you want to put like maybe a fence, maybe spike strip, whatever, something that would avoid parking or something like that, then I would be open to it. I would just want it to be consistent with, and this is like a strange situation. It's not a common situation, but I would be open to what may be ways of being consistent with not parking on, which has been an issue with folks that also live in kind of strange, with a sidewalk ended, and that's, this is not unique to just the situation. So I would be open to those conversations. I want to be consistent with respect to that. That's right.
So Stuart, though, the contract says what? There's a certain time is of the essence or something happens?
Yes, and we were to close, I believe it was May 31.
Okay.
And there is, and just to correct Trustee Quezada, there is a signed contract. What there isn't is a closing.
Close. Sorry, thank you.
We do have a signed contract.
Right. So what does that kick off? Does that mean like there's a date? If they don't do something, something else happens? What's the?
Time of the essence means if you don't close, you can lose your deposit.
All right. So to Deputy Mayor's point, there is actually something that says if X doesn't happen, Y kicks in. So let's have Y kick in. You didn't do what you're supposed to. Thank you for the money. That's it. I mean, if it's in the contract and we have that, then isn't that what you're saying?
Yes, that's
So
exactly what I'm saying.
therefore, I don't even think there's a 30-day issue here. There is we've passed the date. We're done. We keep as long as that's what it says. Is that correct? So you don't want to do 30 days because you don't even think it's necessary.
Correct.
That
So you
it's
just
day
want to do
one.
it tomorrow?
Yeah, he wants to do it based on the contract.
Okay, then that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm
Are you
okay with
okay
that,
with that?
30, less than 30 days.
Has he not responded? Okay.
Okay, he has not responded, so, okay,
Okay.
all
It's
right.
not like he doesn't know where we are. And then we need to open up a conversation. We need to open up a conversation about what to do with that village property. Which I do have some ideas. Okay, so
That was continuing business of the board.
that was, that was new business of the board.
Oh, I
Oh,
thought-
that was continuing because this already existed.
Right.
That's correct.
Right. Did you have a second thing,
I
Mayor?
did, but it's going to take too long and it's 9 o'clock and we have other things going on. So I will save it and I can do it via an email to the board and staff. I don't need to do it here.
So do we have any new business of the board?
Did you want to just give an update about the placemaking? You want to wait till next week? You've been doing so much work on that. Oh, and thank you also for interviewing.
Yes.
That's
I think we should talk, I mean, you can give an update, Dana, but I think the three of us should talk before.
okay.
Yeah.
So let's save that.
I'll just say that we have finished our interviews and we will be finalizing the list in the coming week.
Great.
you.
Much appreciated. Always like a big moment when we do new committee, but we also took a committee down, which I think is a smart thing to do. Okay,
So do we have a motion to adjourn into advice of counsel?
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is 9:01. We are finished for this evening. We have next Wednesday, we will see everyone. Hopefully, people will come to the meeting tomorrow to learn about more of our initiatives. 6 p.m. via Zoom. It's on our website. 6 to generally 7 is when the meeting goes. And we look forward to that. And meeting is adjourned.